the second stock round, things are very interesting because this guy over here has no money. He's got 2 corporations. He's not going anywhere. But over here, we have a bunch of stocks. Now, they've all depreciated in value. I've lost money on all of them. But I could turn them in and start a nice rich company right next to Milan. If it was a major, it might be very, very no, I can't because of that limitation. All right, so yeah, we're probably not going to see too much movement here. Yes, there's an interesting location here in Bologna, but again, you know, for the same reasons that nobody was willing to crush something in order to get the value in their starting corporation. Which one was it? I think it was this one that was considering hurting its position, throwing a lot of money into that. And that would involve selling his share to get more money into the new corporation so that it could operate. Well, for the same reasons that it makes sense here, but not so much down here in Bologna, it seems like I don't think anybody's going to ditch the money that they can make next turn, because otherwise they're just losing cash off of everything. Of course, they also are dumping stock values down, and you can start a company. You don't have to start a company with all those certificates. That's another factor in here. Oh, I don't know. Some of these shares didn't lose. Yeah, no, they lose quite a bit. Anyway, it looks like everything is sold out at the end of the stock round. Nobody wanted to buy this and start it. It's a cheaper... No, it's not a cheaper. It's a way of starting a corporation here. That's all it is, and it's pretty uninteresting otherwise. If everything is indeed sold out, which is what it looks like, nothing's in there, everybody goes up. And I guess we move up to that operating round and start this time correctly, I hope, by actually playing his turn out. So we open this guy up, set up to go into Milan. Hey, Torino's nicely set up, actually. We got the T counter coming forward, and this is part of why, you know, testing things out makes sense. This is going to go into a, hey, turn it into one city with 2 dots, but a valuable one, and that little 2 train is going to run for a lot of money. With all shares sold out, normally in an 1830 type game, you might be thinking, if I'm going to get money, I need to do it now, soon, fast. I have a lot of dots available. Can't place any yet. So I think, you know, I don't really need to pay out, though, because I have this. And what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to start that Bologna company, whatever that ends up being, and use that as my source of funding, because I can't ever use my own shares. I can't get them back in the initial offering, for example. One thing that's a little weird, the initial offering looks like it's supposed to come here, initial offering corporate stock, maybe transferred from up there, that these are just the companies that are available to you. I'm leaving them out there. I think I can understand that difference easily enough. The only problem with it is I have to be able to pay attention to, hey, you know, how many certificates are there over there, and then how many, when we make the run, it's going to be painful, because I'm going to be making $50, 5 a share. That's not going to raise my stock value at all. I'd need to have a stock value of less than 50 for that to matter. But it will pay out some cash to those holding the stocks, including the owner. And I forgot to give him his $20 at the end of the stock round. And it's going to, but in addition to keeping track of all these 8 players who may have shares of that, There are companies that have shares of it too that I gotta pay attention to. Actually a tough call. I could use my money and start a new corporation there. Or I could use my money and buy another train. I don't know that I have enough to do both. Just because the startup cost for a new corporation, it has to buy its dots right away. Of course, dots here are only 25 each. Doesn't really work because I don't have enough money. I have enough money to start the company, but I don't have enough for it to buy a train. The $200 train or 200 lira train is just too expensive. However, if I throw all my cash together, I can easily start the corporation at 300 bucks, which gives it that chance. That means I don't get another train. Do I need another train, or do I want a corporation down here? That's hard to judge, because this is my way of making money. I don't make any money off of stocks that this thing buys. But on the other hand, yeah, I think I'm just going to do the conservative and buy the train. The reason I'm not sure that that's the right move is that, hey, maybe I want to push the trains out more. Maybe I want more excitement to come about. Maybe I want this thing to collapse before it gets big and powerful. And if this corporation is going to come out in somebody else's hands, and it may well, maybe I want to be the guy in charge of it, right? I don't know. I really don't know. It's very difficult to make decisions in something that's this alien. That's why, I'm doing this a little further, even though I messed up. And I honestly don't know. I may just continue with this to see what I can see through the whole game. And it's not like it really matters who wins an XX game when I play it solo. What matters is what the effects of it are. And the screw-ups that I've had, yeah, I've had to back up some things, but I don't know if they're that terrible. All right, so that's one corporation down. Our next one is going to be this SFMA down here, who has a pile of stock certificates that they're allowed to sell because that thing operated. We operated. And again, we're losing money off these. We paid 68, we're only getting 62 a share if we get them, but the opportunity may be too big. And if we didn't buy these, would we still have this opportunity? You don't know, probably. Because why? No, I'm not sure. So they're the screwed up one that that ran early and didn't get to buy everything it wanted to, and they're the one who's completely cocked up. So they actually have more money than they probably would. Capability to make other runs. They have a dot. Who knows what they'll do? But they don't go next. This goes next, and this may be his opportunity. So there's a problem with this, which is holding these shares. If we get to the 4, if that's where, I believe it is, where the revolutions happen. Yeah. So that's where the Tuscanian merge happens, which is what this is. These all become valueless. I mean, not entirely. They end up in the initial offering instead of the bank pool. Because if I sell these are going to go to the bank pool. So there are additional cash and resources that corporation has if I hold them there. So they're not really doing a bad thing by being there. And they are generating capital off of whatever that runs. On the other hand, if I end up in control of this sucker and this one, there might be a nice synergy going on down there. Hard to tell. The capacity to make money in these companies is not really impressing me. So for example, this guy set up. Now, granted, this is his first run, but he set up a run where he's able to make 60, 70 bucks. That's not enough to move the stock value. So I used to just pay out, get the stock value. But I want to pay out because, well, I have 40% of the company, so that's 28 bucks. 70 bucks isn't going to make much difference in terms of throwing that into the treasury. I do have a bunch of this in my treasury. Question is, do I want to convert that into money in another corporation? I've decided against it. There's another operating round, so at the very least, I'll have another chance to start a corporation. Maybe not the one here that I want to start, but at this point, I'm just losing money. If somehow this moves forward, and that's the case in all of these, I've lost money on all my shares because I'm not able to breach that initial hurdle of, a 95 buck run, for example. Now, eventually I'll make money by just making it through stock rounds and getting the income increase, but that's not a good way to make money, and it seems like stock value is just not generating much here. In fact, it may be a good idea not to buy anything in your first chance to do so in the first stock round. You might be better off holding your cash as long as other people are causing things to happen. If everybody kind of holds back, and just a few companies start, those few companies are going to start making money and being profitable. So by getting them all floated and fully capitalized, that extra money is available, trains are getting bought, new corporations are getting started, etc. I don't think anybody actually started a new corporation, but the full train value is out there. All the shares are gone, so there's no play left for the other players to pick up loose shares and make money. There's also no arbitrage here. It's not in the system, in the sense that the initial offering. Oh, shit. And that is something I got to worry about. I think I may have mentioned this before, but you buy something from the initial offering for the current price, and I may have screwed that up in a couple of cases. Something like this company bought somebody who came after him. So that's not a big deal, but I'm not sure. For example, this guy bought shares of this SPFN or SFTN or whatever the hell it is, which actually had already dropped in price. So I'm actually probably owed 20 bucks into the company treasury there. I don't know if anybody else he's probably owed. So yeah, let's try to rectify that as well. This is a tough game because so many things are just a little different. Blue came after orange. I think that's it. I think I've corrected everything. But again, I've made so many screw-ups. However, I'm trying to get the feel for the flavor of what this game kind of generates, and I don't have it yet. Maybe if I start getting the rolls right, that'll help. All right, now we're over to the big boy, and it gets 2 track lays. If it had more dots, it wouldn't get any more track lays because we've moved into that third, phase 3. That IRSFF does make money, 240 bucks a share. Now that's running 3 trains, running real hot. But remember, it breaks into a couple of companies. Of course, those go to the people who hold the shares of it. So as long as he's got 40%, he's probably going to get the presidency of both companies. But a nice little run here, running here, here, and here. 2 track lays. No money going into the company treasury. 240 bucks might be a nice swallow. But as of right now, I feel like I need some cash. It doesn't look like the 4 trains are going to fall anytime soon. I also can make some stock value up. I can always dump at least part of the company in order to raise some extra revenue. There's no floating value to this game. Like, you can start a company on 20%. And if you're starting it at a high value, that's actually quite a bit of the company. That's quite a hunk of money that you're throwing into the company, and it'll be a pretty rich company. So I think in general, you're going to see people starting companies at low percentages as the game goes on, but there was an advantage to starting them at a high percentage, buying a lot of cheap shares early on, and you see a lot of people did that so that they can make their money back off these stupid concession chits that they had to put into play. Really no money on the company, so no chance to do anything. I could have dotted. This is an interesting dot. I can't. Torino doesn't have another space, and I can't cross borders with dots, which means that I'm not going to be able. Oh, I hope I've got this right. We're in phase 3. That's not. Phase 4 is when the secession happens. Phase 5, I believe, is when Austria is eliminated. Yeah. So I get broken into 2 companies in phase 4. I end up including Milan in the main board on phase 4 as well. And Milan looks very valuable. It's kind of interesting because the majority of the money and railroad goes over to the Venice side, but the best track in a sense is Milan itself, and that's probably where my dot's going to go. Unfortunately, I think the first excess dot goes over to the Venetians, so they may end up with that if they're allowed it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that works out. It may be territorial in the sense that if the dots are over here, they go to the Venice side, and if they're over here, they go to the Lombardy side. I don't remember. Anyway, no money to start corporations or anything, even if I were to sell my shares, which I don't want to do. So we'll go on to this guy. $80, that was enough to actually push him forward too. And in fact, next turn he'll be able to move forward paying out as well. So that's kind of a nice situation. And as long as you're able to move forward and you're close to a boundary like this is going to be, it means that I can swallow and then make the ground back. These guys can't swallow because they started so high, so they can't make the ground back. They kind of have to rely on their cash on hand to get them to the big production boost. I thought all that cash would be kind of nice, but I'm not so sure. And we can see the expansion there. Now we're up to SSFL, which is the other little guy down here. And what's kind of cool about him, someone's sitting on 50% of it in their bank pool, which makes an interesting argument for swallowing with them. Because I'm only getting 40%. Of course, I'm getting 40% and another player's getting 10% and another corporation's getting 50%. The thinking is just so different in this game. Realizing that some other corporation is going to be making operating money off of me running if I pay out. And my track doesn't quite hook up. I've only got a 2 train, so I can run this. This is up to the gray value, so it's actually pretty valuable at this point. So maybe heading down into there makes more sense than anything else. I've got to pay attention to this. I'm so used to red areas not being that great. This is $80. I got to get Venice boosted to a green tile so I can hit that, right? That's huge. 100 down here, which is why this becomes kind of interesting, actually, even though it has to pay 100 lira to get their minimum. But that also gets us into... Oh, no, I can't just blast into there. Shit, there's no easy way. Yeah, that's such a hard track. I thought it was real interesting there. The Swiss border, not worth all that much yet. Those off-map areas are so wealthy that they're going to draw people towards them. And remember, that's one of the end game situations. Parting round ends. The white company down here laid a dot here. They're going to be able to run a couple of trains down here, so they bought another one. They got their best run cutting through here instead of going home. Their view is, well, we're a company that falls into another company, so why be so concerned about, saving our dot or something? These two will collapse into one. An extra dot will be in the company. That's fine. Blue got a big run, 29 a share. Well, 290, because what is and isn't a share in this case is somewhat up for discussion, essentially. But yeah, that's nice big money running through here. He would love to have put his dot here, not allowed to put a dot in the Austrian territory yet. Which, he's got cash, enough cash he could blast his way to Genoa, but is that really worth his time? Right now he's running 2 trains, which is why he made so much money. One coming out of here, 1, 2, 3, hitting this as well. And another one here too. Genoa is not necessarily worth all that much money if I continue in this direction, but it becomes worth more if I go down this way or whatever, because I get to use that big Torino, which is nice. I would love to have a dot over in Milan. Another option is to build track here and hit Milan a second time, which might be better as well. Hard to tell, what track lays I want to lay down. I don't have a whole hell of a lot of dots, so things aren't going to get a lot better than they are. This is kind of my good time in the game, and I'm not, it's not like it's going to turn into some other corporation or anything like that. So the hope is to try to maintain 2 trains in a rich area and develop the area for that corporation. I don't think there's a lot in this game, from what I've understood and what I can see, in terms of building big routes. In fact, the guy most poised for it is going to get broken up. And if big routes were easy, the game would end quickly. Whoever's winning would hook up, those cities pretty easily. Some of them are not trivial to hook up. Getting over here to Trent looks easy, but everywhere else there's mountains. Here is easy enough, but this, painful. This, you got to work through the mountains there. This one's easy enough. This one probably will happen. I have to remember the game end condition, though. Is it that all the red areas are connected, or I think they're all just connected to a city on the board, which means you don't have to actually hook up all of northern Italy for this game to end. The SFTN, with 2 trains running on it, pulls in $300, enough to push their stock value forward. Some good cash in my pocket. Enough money here to start a corporation. It won't be running this time, and there'll be a stock round. I'll have the opportunity to buy shares of that corporation, throw more money into it. Do I want to? That's the big question. Because I'll be using my corporation's capital, which could be used for trains, etc., to move that money into a different corporation. That doesn't sound terribly wise. However, that other corporation, it's not like this money disappears. This money becomes stocks in that other corporation. So if I start that corporation somewhere, and I'm still not allowed to build in Austria, which means don't really get to play in Milan land, right? Non-historical outside of Austrian Swiss. So the Bologna option is still available. That's a fairly cheap corporation I could start. How much money does it make? Well, it's set up so that it can kind of take advantage of Venice. Maybe it can eventually get over here, but that's pretty questionable. The big money is maybe hitting these things. I'm going to go for it. It's a matter of having sort of the first real option to do something. Now, I have also the opportunity, I could sell this certificate. I've lost money on that certificate, though. And I think I'd rather keep it in there. It's going to produce some cash, I guess. I don't know. It's not moving forward. It's only got 1-2 train on it. Yeah, maybe it's time to just divest from it because it's just going to be running 8 a share or 8.80. Well, it'll produce $16 for me a run, which is better than I'm doing, but it's not, it's better than the money just sitting in my treasury, but it's not better than what maybe I can do with a new corporation. Okay, we'll see how much we can get a corporation started at. I'm starting an ahistorical corporation. It can't be historical. The only historical one left is related to this, and a corporation can't do that. Starting in Bologna and Parma. I'm allowed to start in 2 areas. What I'm not clear about is, and maybe I can look this up in the FAQ, is whether a historical corporation can start in 2 locations if it's not scheduled to do so. I don't think that's the case because that would screw with their potential their potential initial cost for tokens. I've bought a whole bunch of tokens. This is going to be a monster corporation, right? And it's going to need the tokens. They're already paid for, but it's going to need them to kind of dominate the Milan area and maybe the Venice area. And it really wants to run throughout all here now. It can't build those tokens until other phases. The reason I put 2 is that I can start laying track towards Milan as well as in this direction. I get a couple of track lays. Hey, this is an iffy token, but I'm probably going to want it. And I don't think that these are going to be terribly valuable. I hope. We'll see. It could be that I wanted a couple together and I could just run up that way. That might actually make more sense. All my starting positions that I have options for, except for here, are more than 2 spaces away. So I'm only paying $25 a token. That's why I bought so many of them. Which is kind of an interesting situation. I'm probably not going to have a lot of money on this corporation. It started at $68 a share because I was just a few bucks short of being able to buy 2 shares at $144, which I would have liked to do. But one thing you got to remember is I can probably make money at that $68 a share and move the share price forward. Whereas I probably won't be able to do that for a long time if I start at a high value. So yeah, I pay a little bit less money into the corporate treasury on a per share basis, but I'm expecting other corporations are going to buy these shares up or whatever. Now, it is not going to run this turn, so let me flip it over. And then we switch over to, I guess, the next corporation. I forget that people can sell tokens to one another, which is an interesting concept. You can't sell your last token, but is there... See, there's a restriction in the options, but it's not in the base rules, where I couldn't sell, say, this token to the gray company that I own. I'm not sure I'd want to do any of that, but it's possible that someone might want to lay a token for someone else and then hand it off. Just so many weird things in this game. It's funny because I feel like I'm going blind into it. The way I did in, say, my first game of 18xx at all, the first 1830 game I played, I just feel like I have no idea, and I'm discovering so much weirdness in this thing. I can't judge, is it worth starting a new corporation out of my corporation with that money? These kind of decisions, I just have no idea. I can try to think if that stupid yippy dog that I really wish I could strangle would shut up. yeah, I really wish, that I could capture that thought process. It's harder to make that kind of competitive thought process when I'm doing a game solo. It's one of the big things is I like to play something that's very new in an opposed environment. Not necessarily first, but it helps me understand the solo play, which is where I really kind of get the insight. But here I'm not going to get that much insight out of it, although I am going to probably capture some ideas of how the game might flow in general. Obviously not in every circumstance, because here we've got 8 players who don't know what they're doing playing. Right. Our little, Red Company ran, and I don't know, made about $10 a share. Well, the shares are double, so $20, but it ran for 100 by hooking up Rome. And now we're over here on the big guy, and we're hooking up. We're trying to run up to get to Trent. And we're kind of looking at doing it in either direction. Well, both directions maybe, because that's a big value location right now. Ooh. I don't want to do this. I want to get into there. I forgot the Venice track is so important, right? Because that 80 is worth a lot more than that 60. All right, we'll replace this. I went in the wrong direction there. Well, I've paid it out already. Screw it. We're trying to learn the system, but I forgot how valuable that is. Yeah, this is the piece I want. Okay. So I've got $410 on the run there with 3 trades. That's a lot of money. If there's a time to swallow, it may be now. I'll probably get another good run in before the 3s are eaten up, but I may not get another run. I can only buy 1 3, so it's not like I'm going to take all the money and grab it. The problem is $41 a share with 40% of the company, four times that. That's a nice little chunk of change, and I could probably start another company. But starting another company only weakens my position. So I'm going to take the swallow there, grab that money, and buy a 3 train with that corporation. It cuts into everybody else's money. It doesn't have me forced to try to build another corporation. And maybe we can get out of this without, pushing the trains out too quickly. I have the fear that they're just going to all fall at once. And I'm having trouble remembering the order of the companies. I just finished up though, so I should be able to maybe budge my memory a little bit with that. Not much going on down here, just filling in so that this SSFL can make decent runs as well with its 2 trains. That didn't have anything exciting to do. This guy swallowed, of course. And then these are the 2 unstarted companies over there. Now blue, this Torino, ended up starting a very badly underfunded company here, the Da Vinci. But because I'm walking into a stock round and I made good money by running, I could have swallowed it and built it, but that's stupid, right? I was able to start this sucker. I see a line that runs from here to here. It's going to be expensive to hook up and everything, but conceivably I could even buy a train off my other corporation. And if other people help float money, I only started at 68, only bought 2 shares, bought 2 tokens. I may be just asking for it here, And remember, if you go bankrupt in this game, it's bad because your stock values of all the stuff that you liquidate is at half value. So it's not like in some of the other XX games where you can say, well, you know, I'll lose a little money on my stock values. I maybe won't make as much because I'll miss an operating round with some of my shares. But beyond that, your stock value is being cut in half by it. So it's not something you want to have happen. You want to avoid it, but I'm willing to play a little risky to try to learn the system a little bit here. And I'm hoping I have enough cash here, especially if I dump this thing, although I'd really like to not do that for the simple fact that that's making a lot of money. And it swallowed once this time, so it's making even more money, you know. But yeah, we're making pretty good money with the blue thing, so I've got, I don't remember what, I got a couple $100 in here. So I should be able to throw most of that cash into there, unless somebody else starts buying them up. And this is one of the weird things. So like, priority is as far from me as possible. So if somebody else buys up shares of this, you know, I may wreck the company. You know, it's always an option. All right, that puts us into, I guess, the third stock round. And I'm taking this easy. I'm taking it slow. I'm making mistakes, but you know, I think I'm starting to absorb some things, and I'm hoping through play that maybe some of you watching it are getting something out of this. If not, you know, that's life. I mean, I could get more out of it by not videoing, but I know not a lot of people get a chance to look at this game at all. I don't think this is going to work at all, but this guy bought up his share of the Da Vinci. This guy starts, and what's cool about starting a company is you can buy all the share, you know, up to your share limit or whatever, all at once. I gotta watch the owner of this, make sure he doesn't get any whites. He's allowed one, but that's it. But he's got so many of them collected there. But I started this company, and my thought was, hey, I could start it over in Torino. That would be great. You know, I'm all hooked up. I got good track already, and I'm in position to start slapping down some nasties. Alternatively, I could have paid $50 for this, which maybe I should have. Simply because this isn't bad. I'd have to pay $100 in tokens, but the problem with this is that I have to pay $200 a token for that. And I started at 144, which I also think may be a mistake. So I'm thinking about withdrawing that because I want to sell my stuff and get another company started. But this is not bad, so I'll go with it. It gives me a lot of tokens. It puts me close in those areas. It just doesn't have me set up quite as well, but there should be some synergy between these two companies as long as they don't, you know, cut each other's throats. And I'd rather not go back on a decision that was kind of hard to do. The 144 price got me a little bit extra money in here, but it means less. I'm going to make less money per share, and I was thinking of starting it at 100, and it's going to take a long time before I start accumulating share value off of those. That doesn't necessarily mean too much as long as it's my end of game, as long as I'm holding those certificates for a long enough time that they get a chance to improve and come out. But I think, you know, who knows, because this looks pretty hard to get up to unless you have many trains, and I'm not sure there's an easy route to get those many trains. But anyway, that's where I'm sitting right now. I'll stick with it. This is the kind of decision that, you know, I figure out while I'm playing, and even in a pose game, and I'm like, I do it all, and then I want to undo it, you know. And I gotta learn just to live with these things. But I think the 144 was a definite mistake. And I'm not so sure about this. It might have been better to spend the premium to get into there. Now, there are still players without a corporation. This guy down here does not have a corporation. So he may take Gwenco, simply because it is not that bad a position if he can put enough cash into it. There are a couple little investment pickups, these guys out of the bank pool. This guy's in an interesting position. He's got enough cash he could start another company, but he's got this corporation under his corporation. And unless people are going to float it a lot of money, it's not really gonna survive. Doesn't have enough to buy trains and such not. So he's got to buy stocks in that. But it might behoove him to buy the operating corporation first and grab something that's capable of making money. He makes sure, sometimes you remember this, that somebody who looks like they'll probably start another corporation doesn't have any of those shares, because otherwise those might end up dumped again, and it always sucks to lose money that way right away, especially in your little investment grade stuff. Going into more detail with this than I do with most XX games, and that's partially because I'm learning. I don't remember as many things. It's not following patterns I'm used to, etc. But also, well, maybe other reasons too. Well, so anyway, during the stock round, this guy bought the Kunko. Now, people online say it usually, or not online, the suggestions as to why things were changed in version 2 suggest that this doesn't usually get bought because it's not useful. I'm seeing it as fairly valuable. This corporation gets me into here. It is the only thing that gets me there cheaply. All these dots, if I started any of those, are going to cost me $100 a dot. Now, granted, this is not a big company, it's a miner. Well, miners aren't bad. They produce good revenue, so there's some advantages to that, and it can always be upgraded if I can get it running well. Over here, this guy picks up his Da Vinci, and he's pretty happy that someone else bought it, simply because, you know, he thought he was going to have to fund the whole damn thing, or at least 40%. He may anyway, to get the cash in there early. But or he may leave the share out there so that he produces cash. The advantage was, well, the fact that this guy didn't have anything to buy. There was nothing out there worth picking up. So he picked up, one of the two new corporations, the one that looked the most promising. He's got more money to buy other stuff, perhaps. He probably should have held off to see what's going on, because he can't sell this. He can't exchange it for certificates that are of more value that he'd probably rather have. And then this guy picked up one of those cheapies. It's not like the Canadian Railway or something. You don't get screwed out of extra shares. I think Canadian ends up screwing out of extra shares. Worst comes to worst, you get the cash value back, or the option to pay the cash value to upgrade to a full certificate in the merged company. So it's probably not a bad thing to make the exchange. I hope. We'll see. And now we're back around, and I think things are pretty much decided now. This guy's going to start that corporation. The question is how much he starts it for. Other people are going to pick up what investments they can and fill out their hand. The reason he bought the Da Vinci, he had exactly enough money to buy 2 certificates of the new starting corporations. The Da Vinci's more likely to run out first, so it made more sense. Now, he's got a problem, though. He would love to own another certificate of the Da Vinci, but yes, he can. He gets the presidency if he does. Boom. He wins. And that puts those certificates over there. That's important because he couldn't afford to buy a certificate of Da Vinci. No, he doesn't get the presidency. Yeah, he can't do that. He can't afford, I get confused because of the 20%, 40%. He can't afford to have essentially 40% of the Da Vinci, because it could be raped too easily and then handed off to him during an operating round where priority won't even help him. So he's going to have to buy a share of whatever this thing is instead. And this is a shame overall, because there's only 2 operating rounds this time, and all his new investment money is going into that. He would like to pick this up, right? But he's $2 short. He has exactly the amount needed to buy 2 certificates. And, usually that's a good thing, but not. Oh, if there was an SLF, if there was one of those orange guys out there, he could buy that. But yeah, without selling certificates, he's not going to be able to do anything. And he would have been better off, I don't know, having different money is what it really comes down to. Weird side effect. Starting a corporation doesn't lose you priority in this game because you're able to scoop up all the certificates for that corporation. So this guy who, made a couple of purchases is done and is passing already because he's out of cash. Another miscalculation. You're only allowed to hold 60% of your company. Yeah, that includes this. He can't get the 40% there, which means he can't put all the money in the treasury. And that's the problem with this one. He put in his particular amount of money, said, I have $400. Hey, I can get 4 certificates. No, you can't. You can only get 3. If it was a major company, yeah, he could have been more flexible. But with a minor, you can't put that. You have a harder time with the money. It's going to cost me $50 to build in the mountain here. It's going to cost me $200 for a train, assuming nothing goes terrible and I don't get shafted here, but I'm going pretty early, so I don't expect all the 3s and 4s. I don't expect, I don't know, I may be screwed, but I got to go with it. There are actually 2 companies that go before me. This one's going to buy a train. What about that gray one? Probably not. I don't know if money's open in this, probably. But it does put me at a risk because if I have to buy this train, I'm going to be paying out of pocket. And boom, I'm in trouble. Actually, no, I'm not going to be paying out of pocket because I won't be hooked up. But I'm going to lose money off my company. And that'll be horrible. Likewise, this guy was probably hoping to be able to put more money in than he did. And he's very lucky somebody put some money in, because I'm forgetting these minor companies have a pain in the ass factor to them in terms of being able to get started. And they just start cash poor, and that's not easy. At the early stage of the game, it might work, but now these trains are too much. And I mean, we're only on the 3 train, right? But we can't find the money, just because we can't buy enough certificates. And that doesn't help, if you're playing in less players, it doesn't necessarily make things any easier on starting those the smaller companies or corporations, because you still are limited to that 60%. As the stock round ends, $20 goes for that still. Well, interesting situation. The exceedingly high price on this prevented anybody from buying any of it, which is not surprising. The decision here, I believe, to buy a yellow, which looked like it would operate just fine, just like green's going to operate just fine. This doesn't have any major costs associated with it. Kept this guy from buying a Da Vinci, which he probably would rather have had. Now, in groups that I've been with, sometimes people will bail someone out who's in a problem like that because it's to their advantage. So for example, this guy would rather have had a Da Vinci because it'll probably make good money. But the price of the Da Vinci's is going down, whatever. Who knows what happens. If this guy has to sell stock, cool stuff happens. So he's got some real advantages to that crashing. But once he made that decision, he also is selling other people on it. So 2 other people over here had additional money to invest, and they also, he wanted a yellow, right? This guy bought a yellow as well with his additional money, for the simple fact that it's pretty flush with cash. Nothing horrible is going to happen with that. Now, when we got over to him, he's left with the choice of a second one of these Ferrovaria. Hacienda, I don't know. These yellow guys, which is always dangerous. Not enough money for a dark green, which would have been his first choice. So he ends up buying the Cuenco. And actually it sells out. And let's see, almost everything's sold out, I believe. That's the new one, the Cuenco. SSFL. These guys all sold out. I'm not doing these in any particular, I mean, I'm doing them in a right to left order instead of, neither of these sold out. There's still certificates of each there, but this is of course sold out. So now we have another, now the order has changed as it does in most of these. It's going to go boom, 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 boom. Wow. This is a different kind of chart than most, I think. I'm not sure why. Then here, 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 jump up here, and then down here. And some of these corporations have no chance of advancing. They don't have a train or anything yet, so they have not operated yet. Looking over the phase changes, I see another mistake I made, and it's clearly spelled out here. Phase 4 is when the gray zone becomes valuable. Now, everybody's decisions right now are fine because, the Genoa, they're going to all be able to hit that gray zone. I made a run here where I think I got an extra $10 a share. I think that's the only thing I did. And in fact, over here, I made the decision not to hook up that section because it wasn't worth it yet. I tend not to plan well in advance, so maybe this track wouldn't have gotten built yet because that's still pretty cheap. The decision on this, maybe I wouldn't have made it because it was not clear how many trains were going to be coming out. But yeah, I think I think we leave this as is, and that extra $10 a share or whatever that I got by going into here, just forget about it. Pretend it never happened. It's really not that big a deal, I don't think. But we've made some other mistakes, and I think we're just going to keep running with this and see where it goes rather than try to restart, because I am kind of curious as to the eventual situation that we're going to end up in. This seems like a good place to load up. I'm almost at the hour mark.